because this is such a fundamental question. And and I apologize for losing my temper and interrupting you earlier, Minister, but when you say that you had a conversation with judges about judicial independence, it shows that you do not understand the concept of judicial independence, because you are one person who cannot talk to judges, because that's the whole point of judicial independence. Our whole point of judicial independence, our whole system is based around keeping cabinet ministers and politicians away from judges. So I can talk with David about judicial independence. You can talk with me about judicial independence. You can't talk to judges about judicial independence. And if you don't get that, you need to resign, because you can't defend the principle of judicial independence if you think that it's okay for you, in whatever form else, to actually sit around and talk to people, to talk to judges about that subject. And you also can't pass the buck on Donald Arseneau. Our cabinet. I never will. Well, you did. You said that you weren't going to call him out.
And you said that you agree.
You
didn't do anything wrong.
You speak as a representative of cabinet. Minister Arseneau speaks as a representative of cabinet. The principle of cabinet government and cabinet solidarity comes in here. If you don't understand judicial independence, and you don't understand cabinet responsibility and collective action, I question why you're here defending decisions that your government is making that you don't even understand the basis of.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Simple, if I can just...
Yes, please do.
Look, we're talking about the residency of judges. We feel that we're not interfering with the independence of justice.
Okay.
As simple as that. But the examples you're citing...
That's your legal advice?
I'm not a lawyer.
No, but I mean, you're the minister.
I have legislation. I have legislation right through Canada. Another problem, what they do. If I can refer actually to something specifically on that. I talked to someone who was involved in the Justice Department in Saskatchewan yesterday in advance of this panel, and they said that the misrepresentation of the New Brunswick government concerning the way in which judges are assigned in Saskatchewan is extremely troubling, and they imagine it will be raised. I haven't had the chance to talk to similar officials in Newfoundland. I would guess, based on the fact that people I've talked to through my prior career working in international politics, including development of judicial systems, who when they saw your bill said, this is the sort of thing we expect out of a banana republic, that this is happening in New Brunswick, are you serious? That would be a direct quote from someone who was a former U.S. Senator.
Well, Mr. Carney...
And their response to your government's actions were not even to believe that they could be real in a democratic country in 2016. So you talked about 2016. 2016 is a justice minister who understands that you can't talk to judges about judicial independence, who understands that cabinet ministers speak collectively and you're responsible for what Don Arseneau says in the same way he is for what you say, and also where ministers take accountability when they screw up and take the fall and step down like honorable ministers have in the past. You might well come back. No one thinks you're a bad guy, but you've screwed up here and you need to go.
I don't think so.
Terry, do you mind if I just read the legislation, what's going on in Saskatchewan and in Newfoundland and Labrador?
Okay.
Both read the same. The authority is with the Lieutenant Governor and Council. There's no consultation in both of those provinces. So the Chief Justice is not even involved. It's Cabinet who makes those decisions. Read the whole legislation, Minister. That's the last clause. I'm reading it right here.
And furthermore,
I have other provinces and that deal with, they consult with the Attorney General. But again, in most provinces, the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice has been mostly the same person. In this province, we don't have that same person. So it's my responsibility as the Minister of Justice to make sure that the authorization goes in all the bunch of courts. It's mine, not the Attorney General.
Let me ask you this. By all accounts, you're a man of integrity.
I like to think so, yes.
Integrity. When you hear your colleagues call for your resignation, how does that make you feel?
First thing, I must be doing something right. Minister, that's terrible. That's a terrible. When I hear this, look, this is politics.
No,
this is politics. It's nothing more than politics. No, Minister, I've never called
for
never before this.
No,
I'm going to work hard for the people of not only my riding of Fredericton North and all the city of Fredericton, but for the people of this province in New Brunswick. If I felt that I was doing something wrong, I certainly wouldn't have done it.
Okay, the minister, we just heard him say that this controversy over the alleged infringement on judicial independence is just politics.
It's completely it's not true. Well, this goes way beyond politics. You've got 4 political parties, you've got the Chief Justice, you've got editorials in the newspaper saying the actions of this government, particularly 2 cabinet ministers that have put into question the competence and the independence of the justice system. This is a minister that has misled the legislature. This is a minister that's backing Arseneau, saying there's nothing wrong. They're screwing up the justice system in our province and now in other provinces, and all along that Premier Gallant and the Attorney General are backing this. This is a complete mess that's gone way beyond the legislation that's been proposed, and these people need to be accountable. And if they don't realize what's wrong, then they are obviously the problem.
Okay, just politics?
Obviously not. I mean, I brought a reasoned amendment to prevent the bill from getting to third reading just before we were shut down again in the legislature, not because of politics, but because of my firm belief that there's a strong likelihood that this is unconstitutional because it violates the administrative independence of the judiciary of this province. Very clear. And that was the reason I brought forward the reasoned amendment. And I cited the case of Ian Mackin, former Justice Ian Mackin against New Brunswick, and the decision of the Supreme Court. That debate's been adjourned because we're not sitting, and we'll resume when we get back. And we'll see what happens there. But in the end, of course, the government holds the majority, and unless the backbenchers outside of the cabinet decide that it's their time to stand up and vote the right way on this, then it will fail. But I clearly did not bring that forward from any political gain or perspective. The minister knows me. He knows what I've done in the House. He knows the kind of amendments I've brought forward, as does my colleague here and anyone watching from outside. The amendments I've brought forward on bills have always been substantive, and for a good reason. It has to do with ensuring the quality of the laws that come out of our House, and in those cases like this one, where it appears that the likelihood is it's unconstitutional to prevent them from being in the end proclaimed.
Dominic Cardy, politics?
I've done my best to avoid, because often opposition parties will just call for people to resign all the time. It drives me crazy because it stops meaning anything, right?
Yeah.
So I've actually never done it before, and it doesn't give me any pleasure to sit here and ask you to step down from your position, because like I said, we have a good personal relationship and we get along well, and I don't think that you're a bad person at all. But this is a question where other honorable men, David Collinette, others in your party over the years have stepped down for similar reasons, because you can't sit there and say that you didn't mislead the House. You had to clarify it, which you did outside, which is slightly inappropriate, but that's a separate issue. But misleading doesn't mean that you did it intentionally, but you did mislead the House. You said, on the record, in Hansard, which is a real fact, a real document that records the statements in the House. Yes, you know what you said. Absolutely. And you know that what you said wasn't true. And you said that. And you've clarified it, and you said that what you meant was something else. Now you won't tell us who you talked to. So if you want to talk about someone who's playing politics, let's talk about the politics here. Because all of us around this table, we all know the real reason why this bill was introduced, right? We've all heard this. It's been the scuttlebutt around the political circles in Fredericton and around Moncton for quite a long time now. We know, from what we've heard from lots and lots of people inside your party who are also upset about this,
Again,
what we have heard. Well, let me. If you haven't heard, then you are the last person in the Liberal Party not to have heard. Because certainly what Liberals tell me is that there is a federal cabinet minister who may have a significant personal relationship with someone who may be a judge in New Brunswick, and that person may wish to avoid being posted to or avoid being reposted to somewhere. And so what you're doing is actually exactly what Don Arsenault said, except for it's your party doing it for one of your people.
Hold on a second. Yeah. Hold on a second. Whoa.
Yeah.
In summary, this bill is being brought in to prevent a judge appointed by the Liberals.
Not appointed. It is a judge who has a strong personal family connection with a federal Liberal cabinet minister.
Okay, does not want to be moved.
That is my understanding.
Okay. So, one name comes immediately to mind, but I'm not going to say it.
In the absence of anyone else from the government being able to come up with a single sensible justification for destroying 800 years of judicial independence, it's actually kind of sad that the reason you are doing it is purely to satisfy the personal needs of people connected to your party.
I totally disagree with you. I've told you why we're doing it. We're including not only the Chief Justice, the Minister of Justice, and the judge. They all have decisions.
Well, you're breaking the bounds of judicial independence means politicians can't be involved in the process.
Okay.
Terry. That is different. And we're just following suit. We're catching up. New Brunswick seems to be always having to catch up with other items in other portfolios, and we're just trying to do that now. We're trying to improve and modernize the situation.
Okay, let me ask you just the final question of the panel, then I'll come around again. Your intent was as you say, your intent was just to make things better, to improve things, to allow New Brunswick to catch up. Okay, if that is such a simple, innocent maneuver, where did this go wrong?
I don't know. You have to speak with him.
But
We don't think it's
do you not
gone
see
wrong.
something you've done as
Absolutely not. Look,
taking this off the rails?
I'll continue to work hard, and as a Minister of Justice, I'll continue to look at cases and what's has in the past. You talk about 800 years. Yeah, well, it's 2016. We have to modernize things. We have to make things better.
Not modernizing to the point of erasing the distance between the judiciary and government.
No, absolutely. We don't think we're interfering with the independence of justice.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Other provinces do it, and we just want to follow suit.
Let's go around. I'm going to start
Yeah.
with Christoph.
You know, this whole thing reminds me of a vacuum company that builds a really terrible vacuum and then puts a sales guy out to try to sell it. And that's what we're getting with this government over and over and over again. I think what's happening here, Terry, is you've got a whole lot of politics being played, a whole lot of incompetence as part of it, and unfortunately a good guy like Mr. Horseman is going to be the fall for it.
Okay, Dominic Carden.
Minister, you've got to either name the justices who talk to you, or you've got to take the fall. And I hope you come back, because I think you're one of the few bright lights in this government, but someone's got to take accountability. And if you don't understand the principles of judicial independence and cabinet solidarity, then there's got to be someone who's got to take the fall for this decision, because you talk about 800 years, and it's 2016. We have an evolutionary process here. We make small changes to make things better. This is not an improvement. No one thinks it's an improvement. None of us think it's an improvement. You've got judges and former justice ministers, former attorney generals coming out saying, for God's sake, stop this now.
Not all negative, as you pointed out, Mr.
Well, you won't tell us the people. You won't tell us the people who say it's positive.
I won't tell you.
So that's.
No,
but you
it's
can,
a conversation,
you can
a private
understand.
conversation.
But you can understand how that's not very credible. Is that everyone who's willing to speak out says that it's terrible, and the only people who say it's great are people who, one, you shouldn't be talking to, and two, you won't name.
Well, hold on a second. You just said they're private conversations. Are they conversations or not? You just spent the...
Again,
So you didn't have them. So come on.
Terry, if they weren't here, I walk by you and I say something to you. Is that private? You know, is
and
that,
I say, Minister, don't do that bill because that's going to really mess us up. Or I say, do the bill because you know what? But we want to see that. It's a small conversation, but a significant one.
And the minister says right away, no, I can't have that conversation with you.
Right. I'm sorry, I
Well,
can't
look-
discuss that. David, go.
That's exactly what should happen if a judge actually said this to you, or more than one, to then reveal that and speak it rather than telling him this isn't appropriate, and try and use it as for political advantage to demonstrate support for the bill you're trying to bring forward, which many, including myself, think is very likely unconstitutional, is inexplicable, Minister. When we get back in the House, you have a responsibility when we get back there to rise and explain the situation, explain how you came to be untruthful and mislead the Legislative Assembly in your response to question during question period. You've got to do that. You've got to do that, and you've got to address this issue of who spoke to you from the judiciary, and name names in the Legislative Assembly, because you revealed the fact that some judge or another spoke to you on a matter of a piece of legislation. Totally inappropriate on the part of that judge if that happened, and even worse now, try to use it for political advantage.
Okay, Jody Carr.
Well, Mr. Horseman says that he's working to improve things, and we would just hope that the government would stop trying to improve things, because they've done nothing but. They've made a mess of the judiciary. They've brought in question the independence, the competence of the justice system. Minister Horseman has said that he's done nothing wrong. He can't see the problems that he's created. He sees no problem in what Arsenault has done publicly. Premier Gallant backed this mess, and that's where it starts with. It's a complete shamble. It's not only embarrassing in the province of New Brunswick, across the country, it puts in question many, many things, and this is disgraceful. And if politics is involved the way Dominic Carty has suggested, brings it to another level of politics before people, but more than that, politics before democracy. And we need this sorted out, and unfortunately it will be Minister Horseman, Minister Arsenault, Minister Gallant, Minister Roussel, and the others that need to account when we come back in the legislature.
Mr. Horseman, quick last question. What conversation have you had with the Premier about potentially you resigning?
None.
None, it hasn't been discussed. That subject hasn't come
Absolutely
up.
not.
Okay.
Premier doesn't care.
Okay, thank you very much all. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.